Every story begins with a spark. Welcome to Story Spark Animations, where every story ignites imagination. Episode 1: The boy everyone mocked became the CEO. They laughed at him every single day. They called him a failure. They said he would never amount to anything. Years later, those same people stood in line asking him for jobs. But this isn't just a story about success. It's a story about pain, about resilience, and about the power of believing in yourself when no one else does. Ethan Parker wasn't the kind of boy people noticed. At 16 years old, he sat in the back corner of his classroom, always quiet, always observing. While other students wore the latest sneakers and expensive clothes, Ethan wore the same faded hoodie almost every week. His shoes had tiny tears near the soles. His backpack had been stitched together more times than anyone could count. But Ethan never complained. Every morning before school, he helped his mother prepare breakfast at the small diner where she worked. After school, he washed dishes there until closing time. Life had forced him to grow up faster than most teenagers. One Monday morning, Ethan walked into Jefferson High carrying a stack of textbooks against his chest. As usual, whispers followed him. "Look who's here," someone muttered. Jake Thompson leaned back in his chair with a smirk. Jake was everything Ethan wasn't. Confident, popular, athletic. The kind of student teachers praised and classmates admired. He pointed at Ethan's worn-out sneakers. "Did those survive the dinosaur age?" Jake joked loudly. The classroom erupted in laughter. Ethan lowered his head. He had heard worse. He quietly made his way to his seat. "Hey Ethan," another student called out. "When you become rich someday, don't forget us." More laughter. Ethan pretended not to hear. He opened his notebook and focused on the lesson. But inside, every joke left a mark. People often say words don't hurt. They do. Sometimes they hurt more than bruises. That afternoon, during lunch break, Ethan sat alone under a large oak tree behind the school library. He pulled out a worn notebook filled with ideas. Business sketches. Dreams. Random inventions. Goals. At the top of one page, written in careful handwriting, were the words, "One day, I will build something that changes lives." He stared at the sentence. Then sighed. Maybe Jake was right. Maybe he was dreaming too big. Maybe boys from families like his weren't meant for extraordinary things. Just then a shadow appeared beside him. "Mind if I sit here?" Ethan looked up. It was Mrs. Carter, his economics teacher. Mrs. Carter wasn't like most teachers. She paid attention. Not just to grades, but to people. She sat beside him on the bench. "I've noticed something about you, Ethan." Ethan looked nervous. "I'm sorry if I've done something wrong." Mrs. Carter smiled gently. "You haven't." She pointed toward his notebook. "May I?" Hesitantly, Ethan handed it to her. She flipped through pages filled with diagrams and ideas. Community programs. Technology concepts. Business names. Plans for helping struggling families find jobs. Mrs. Carter's eyes widened. "Did you create all of this?" Ethan nodded. "I know they're silly." "Silly," she repeated. "Ethan, these aren't silly. They're ambitious. No one has ever changed the world by thinking small." For a moment, Ethan didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken about his dreams as if they mattered. Mrs. Carter closed the notebook and handed it back. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan nodded. "The people who laugh at you today are judging a chapter of your life." She paused. "They have no idea how your story ends." Ethan looked down. "What if they're right? What if I fail?" Mrs. Carter's voice softened. "You probably will." Ethan blinked. "You'll fail many times. You'll make mistakes. You'll doubt yourself. You'll want to quit. But failure doesn't decide your future. Giving up does." The word settled deep inside Ethan's heart. For the first time in a long while, someone believed in him. As school ended that day, Ethan returned to the diner where his mother worked. He tied on an apron and began clearing tables. Customers came and went. Plates piled high. Hours passed. Around closing time, his mother noticed how quiet he had become. "You okay, sweetheart?" Ethan forced a smile. Yeah. She gently placed a hand on his shoulder. You know, when life gets hard, I remind myself of something. Ethan looked at her. We may not have much, but we have something many people lose. Hope. She smiled. And as long as we have hope, tomorrow can always be better. Later that night, Ethan sat on the edge of his small bed. Moonlight streamed through the window. He opened his notebook once more. He stared at the sentence he'd written earlier. One day, I will build something that changes lives. Slowly, he picked up a pen. And underneath it, he added another line. I don't know how. I don't know when. But I won't give up. Little did Ethan know. Life was about to test that promise in ways he never imagined. And the biggest challenge of his life was closer than he thought. The next few months passed in a blur. Every morning, Ethan woke up before sunrise. He helped his mother at the diner, went to school, worked after classes, then stayed up late studying. Exhaustion became normal. Some nights he fell asleep with textbooks open beside him. Other nights he stared at the ceiling wondering if all the effort was worth it. At school, the teasing never truly stopped. Jake Thompson still found amusement in Ethan's quiet nature. One afternoon during economics class, Mrs. Carter assigned a group project. The task was simple. Each group had to create a business proposal. Before Mrs. Carter could finish assigning teams, Jake groaned loudly. Please don't put me with Ethan. The classroom burst into laughter. Jake leaned back in his chair. His big ideas belong in fantasy movies. More laughter echoed through the room. Mrs. Carter's expression hardened. Enough. The room fell silent. Ethan's ideas are more thoughtful than many people realize. Jake shrugged. Then let's hear one. He turned toward Ethan. Go on, tell us how you're going to become a billionaire. The class watched. Waiting. Some amused. Others curious. Ethan's heart pounded. Every instinct told him to stay quiet. But then he remembered Mrs. Carter's words. Failure doesn't decide your future. Giving up does. Slowly, Ethan stood up. He took a shaky breath. I want to build companies that solve real problems. Silence. I want to create opportunities for people who don't get many chances. He looked around the room. People shouldn't have to give up on their dreams because of where they come from. For a brief moment, nobody laughed. Then Jake smirked. That's cute. The laughter returned. Ethan sat down. His face burned with embarrassment. But deep inside, a tiny part of him was proud. For once, he hadn't hidden. Weeks later, graduation approached. Students excitedly talked about university plans, dream careers, travel, future adventures. But Ethan faced a different reality. College acceptance letters arrived. So did tuition costs. The numbers made his stomach sink. Even with scholarships, there simply wasn't enough money. That evening, Ethan sat quietly at the diner. His mother noticed the unopened envelope beside him. What is it? He handed it to her. Her eyes scanned the page. Then she looked away. I'm sorry. Ethan forced a smile. It's okay. No, she whispered. It isn't. Tears filled her eyes. You've worked so hard. I wanted to give you more. Ethan grabbed her hand. You already have. She looked confused. You taught me how to work hard. You taught me kindness. You taught me not to quit. His voice cracked. That's more valuable than money. For the first time in years, his mother cried openly. A few weeks after graduation, reality arrived with brutal force. While former classmates moved into college dormitories, Ethan continued washing dishes, serving customers, cleaning floors. Every social media update felt like another reminder that everyone else was moving forward. Except him. One rainy evening, exhausted after a 14-hour shift, Ethan walked home carrying groceries. His phone buzzed. A notification appeared. Jake Thompson had posted photos online. Luxury campus buildings. Football games. New friends. The caption read, Best years of my life just getting started. Ethan stared at the screen. Then slipped the phone back into his pocket. By the time he reached home, something inside him had cracked. He entered his room, pulled out his notebook. The same notebook filled with dreams. The same notebook Mrs. Carter had praised. The same notebook he'd protected for years. He flipped through pages of ideas. Business plans. Sketches. Goals. Then anger replaced hope. What was the point, he whispered. His voice grew louder. What was the point? He had done everything right. Worked hard. Stayed focused. Ignored the bullies. Believed in himself. And where had it gotten him? Nowhere. Tears streamed down his face. He picked up the notebook, raised it over the trash bin. And for one terrible moment, he almost threw it away. He almost let years of dreams disappear forever. Just then, there was a knock on his bedroom door. Ethan. It was his mother. She entered quietly. One look at his face told her everything. Without saying a word, she sat beside him. I can't do this anymore, Ethan said. I'm tired. I'm tired of hopping. I'm tired of trying. His voice broke. Maybe Jake was right. Maybe people like us aren't meant for big dreams. His mother remained silent for a moment. Then she picked up the notebook from his trembling hands. She turned to the very first page. One day, I will build something that changes lives. Then she turned to the second sentence. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I won't give up. She looked directly into his eyes. Did you mean these words when you wrote them? Ethan nodded slowly. Then don't let one difficult season convince you that your story is over. Outside, the rain continued falling against the windows. Inside, Ethan sat in silence. He didn't have answers. He didn't have money. He didn't know what came next. But somewhere beneath the disappointment, the spark remained. Small, flickering, but alive. And within days, an unexpected opportunity would arrive. One simple idea. One small risk. One decision. The decision that would change Ethan's life forever. The next morning, Ethan woke up with swollen eyes. He barely slept. The doubts from the previous night still lingered in his mind. Maybe it was time to stop dreaming. Maybe it was time to accept reality. As he prepared for another long shift at the diner, Mrs. Harris, one of the regular customers, walked in. She was a cheerful woman in her 60s who never failed to ask Ethan how he was doing. You look troubled today, she said gently. Ethan forced a smile. Just tired. Mrs. Harris studied him for a moment. You know, she said, sometimes the answer we're looking for is hidden inside a problem we've learned to live with. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? Mrs. Harris pointed around the diner. People complain all the time about not finding jobs, about not knowing where to start. She smiled. People pay good money to solve problems. Those words stayed with Ethan all day. People pay good money to solve problems. That night he opened his notebook again. He flipped through pages filled with ideas. Then one concept caught his attention. A platform that connected struggling job seekers with businesses willing to train and hire them. Simple. Practical. Helpful. His heart began to race. For the first time in months, excitement replaced fear. What if this is it, he whispered. What if this is the idea? He had no investors. No fancy office. No business degree. But he had something powerful. He understood the struggle. And he cared enough to solve it. So he started. Using an old laptop and free online resources, Ethan spent every spare moment learning. He watched tutorials, read articles, made mistakes, started over. Again and again. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. There were setbacks. Many of them. Potential partners rejected him. Emails went unanswered. Some people laughed at his idea. Others dismissed him entirely. Nobody's going to use this. You're wasting your time. Get a real job. Each rejection hurt. But this time, Ethan refused to quit. He remembered his mother's words. Hope. He remembered Mrs. Carter's words. Failure doesn't decide your future. Giving up does. Slowly things began to change. A local business agreed to partner with him. Then another. Job seekers started finding opportunities through the platform. Families sent messages of gratitude. Single parents found employment. Young graduates gained experience. People who had nearly lost hope started rebuilding their lives. The small idea from Ethan's notebook had become something real. 5 years later, the company occupied an entire office building. Employees hurried through bright hallways. Meetings filled conference rooms. The company had expanded across multiple cities. At the entrance stood a sign that read, SBRKBRIDGE Solutions. Founder and CEO, Ethan Parker. The boy everyone mocked had built something that changed lives. One morning, Ethan reviewed interview applications from his office. A knock interrupted him. Your next candidate is here, his assistant said. Send them in. The door opened. Ethan looked up and froze. Standing there was Jake Thompson. Older, less confident. The same Jake who had mocked him in school. Jake stopped walking. His eyes widened. Ethan. The room fell silent. Neither of them knew what to say. Jake lowered his gaze. I didn't know this was your company. Ethan studied him carefully. The memories rushed back. The jokes. The laughter. The humiliation. For a moment, the younger version of himself stood in that classroom again. The room seemed to hold its breath. Jake swallowed hard. I understand if you don't want to hire me. I wasn't kind to you. I was immature. He hesitated. I'm sorry. Ethan looked at the man standing before him. Gone was the arrogant teenager who thought life would always be easy. In his place stood someone humbled by experience. Someone carrying his own disappointments. Ethan leaned back in his chair. You know what the funny thing is? Jake looked up. I spent years imagining this moment. A nervous smile crossed Jake's face. You did. Ethan nodded. I thought if I ever became successful, I'd finally get even. He glanced out the window. But somewhere along the way, I realized something. Pain can make you bitter. Or it can make you better. Jake's eyes filled with tears. Ethan stood and extended his hand. The interview starts now. Jake stared at him. You'd still consider hearing me. Ethan smiled. People grow. People change. And everyone deserves the chance to become better than who they used to be. Jake shook his hand. Thank you. Weeks later, Jake joined the company. Not because of pity, but because he earned the opportunity. One afternoon, Ethan stood before a room filled with employees. Some had once struggled to find work. Others had overcome obstacles no one knew about. He looked around and smiled. When people doubted me, I thought success meant proving them wrong. He paused. But real success isn't about revenge. It's about impact. It's about lifting others as you climb. It's about refusing to let the worst moments of your life define who you become. The room erupted into applause. That evening, Ethan returned home. He opened an old wooden box. Inside lay the worn notebook he had nearly thrown away years ago. He turned to the first page. One day, I will build something that changes lives. Then to the second. I don't know how. I don't know when. But I won't give up. A tear rolled down his cheek as he smiled. You were right, he whispered. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the night sky. The journey had been long. Painful. Uncertain. But worth it. Because sometimes, the quiet kid in the back of the classroom becomes the leader no one expected. Sometimes, the dream everyone laughs at becomes the dream that changes everything. And sometimes, the spark you almost gave up on becomes the light that guides others. So if you're watching this and life hasn't gone the way you planned, if people have underestimated you, if you failed more times than you can count, don't give up. Your story isn't over. You are more than your setbacks, more than your mistakes, more than other people's opinions of you. Keep learning, keep growing, keep believing. Because one day, you may look back and realize that the chapters you wanted to skip were the very chapters that made your story worth telling. And who knows? The person you're becoming today might inspire someone tomorrow. Thank you for watching Story Spark Animations. where every story ignites imagination. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share.